economies, but the tremors, not the Beirut tremors that we have been hearing about for the last 2-3 days now, the tremors that have been felt across the continents. We don't even know today where we are or when will it end, how will it end. We have no idea. We have no clue at all whether it will end in 3 months, 6 months, take a year, 2 years, what will vaccine do, and so on and so forth. But the good news is that the human animal is really a learning animal. Right? We really very, very quickly adapt. Whatever the turmoil, and we have seen several in the last 100 years, which have wrecked the lives. This turmoil has also wrecked the lives of employees and livelihoods. But industrialists and HR folks or business leaders, right? I'm sure they'll figure out what the priorities are, and the priorities are changing for sure. With the half the workforce today not working, the rest half working from home, only 10% or 25%, whatever, based on various states being allowed to come to their factories and organizations. So it is a very different world, as we hear it every second headline, the new normal. So we are in a new normal for sure. I just thought to start with, let me just quickly pick up some headlines that we all have seen in the last few weeks probably. Right, 40% women professionals are experiencing high level of stress, double burden syndrome, home and office. Right, as pandemic shifts, holistic well-being takes the center stage, and therefore we're talking about well-being. Right, COVID-19, India is staring at mental health, and so on and so forth. 93% India Inc. workers are stressed about returning to office, whether it's a stress or a paranoia or a fear or anxiety. I'm sure as in the next 1 hour, we will certainly explore that, and so on and so forth. The outbreak sets new challenges of psychosocial issues and whatnot. Lots and lots of these things we are hearing all the time. Right? The question that we must ask ourselves very quickly, what does the current well-being in India look like, really? If you look at the unlock 1 and 2, what does it really look like? Right? Constantly chasing deadlines, stretching working hours, the boundary between the home and the office is almost diminishing. Right? And I know that we were having a Zoom call yesterday between 10:30 to about 12:30 with some of my colleagues. I mean, in 4 months, 5 months back, we would never imagine that you are having a video call like this from 10:30 in the night to 12:30 in the night. Crazy, really. Or it is all about constantly annoying because of the stress that is being built up. A lot of annoyance, a lot of issues that you're having at home, and therefore the outburst, whether it's friends, with family, sometimes with colleagues and your peers and whatnot. Or it is about constantly worried about insecurities. Whether I lose my job, I'll probably have a pay cut or whatever if you not already have a pay cut. There are all kinds of issues happening because in the current environment. I must share with you, this is a very interesting quick research that India Psychiatric Society did. They said in the initial 2-3 weeks of lockdown, the number of reported cases of mental illness in India rose by a whooping 50%. Unbelievable. Right. So, and of course, Dr. Chaturvedi, who's absolutely expert on this, I'm sure he'll throw some light in a few minutes from now. What we did was, before I get to the panel, what we did was Finky and HR and XC put a survey together. We are still exploring all our data and so on and so forth. The data, we just closed the survey day for yesterday, which essentially we called it a CARE survey, coronavirus ailment, repercussion and effect survey. Essentially, what is the impact of this pandemic and the lockdown that we've had for 3 months on the population, right? Largely the corporate population. So therefore, it was largely about psychological impact of the pandemic on the people in the corporate India. So we are not ready with the full report, but I thought this is a great opportunity to share at least some highlights of the report with the audience that we have here. Very quickly, what did CARE stand for? Really, what we looked at from our demographics is industry, gender, generation, like anybody would look at demographics, location, various parts of the country, occupations, age profile, and so on and so forth. And what we were measuring in the professional and personal well-being were these 6 factors: the current state of health and well-being, the organizational, physical and emotional fitness, the social support in the organization, because people are work from home, people don't have, and we also heard people didn't have even essentials to go and buy, didn't have money to buy, and so on and so forth. Degree and scope of the impact of this pandemic, the coping mechanisms in the working population, and the overall optimism level in the employees, and of course, of all of this, what are the implications on organization? We will release the report on the eve of Independence Day. I am pushing my team and Vicky and us both are working together on this. But here are some very quick highlights. So what we did was we mapped these 6 factors on a 9-grid. We had to use the models. We kept thinking of what model to use. We mapped it on a 9-grid model, right, where we looked at the 3 aspects of health on the x-axis and the 3 aspects of well-being on the y-axis. The 3 aspects of health being physical, emotional, and social support, and the well-being being professional well-being, personal well-being, and overall optimism. right? And as we mapped on the low, moderate, high, very standard, so we mapped it into 5 different parameters. So we said people who are really low on health and low on well-being, both, right? They are in a critical stage and they really need some immediate support, right? Could have suicidal tendencies and whatnot. And I'm sure when Venkat talks about what kind of initiatives they've done in Accenture, we'll know more about that. Then we looked at what about people who are moderate, like moderate or low. I mean, if you're moderate on well-being and low on health, where are you? Or a moderate on health and low on well-being, where are you? We call them restless people. That there is some scope, but they're doing something good, but they need to work a little more. And I'll talk about definitions in a minute. Then the people who are really mid-level, the moderate, which is generally always a larger population, is the people who are okay, comfort zone, they're okay, they're getting the supplies, they're okay, they have the family support, they have the organization support, they have not lost the job, and so on and so forth. Then we looked at people who are high on one thing at least. Even though I've lost a job, but I'm really doing great on health, I'm exercising, I'm going to the gym, I'm doing my yoga, I'm really kept my health, whether it's physical, emotional health, really high, or other way around, my health is low because of whatever COVID factor or anxiety, fears, and so on and so forth. But my well-being, because my company has taken care of me, we haven't had a loss of salary, we haven't had a loss of pay cut, we haven't had whatever we've been, and so on and so forth. So that's really people who are hopeful. And then we looked at the people who are on a high well-being and high health. We are optimal level. They are doing well. They got a family support. They're doing well in health. They got everything, almost going right for them. And typically high level of optimism and high level of social support as well. So this is how we map very quickly. So I've already defined, but within the interest of time, very quickly, this is what the 5 definitions are. Optimal, as I said, is people who are high, which is fully aware and being in control. Hopeful, people who are able to navigate through the low phase of being positive. They are either health or well-being is low, but they're able to navigate. Comfort, which are in between, comfortable with what is already going on. They have some support around. Restless certainly has an issue, and critical, obviously, people who need immediate assistance and guidance to get back on track, else we'll have a huge issue there. Right. When we, very quickly, the highlights, when we mapped the overall population, we had about 3,100 people, to be exact, 3,105 people who participated. And this is where we are 19% people, which is at the optimal level. Right? The hopefuls are 22%, which is good news. The moderate are 35%. Right? So this is how the entire overall spread looks like. The 18% people are restless. This means they are either low on health, low on well-being, and also moderate, just about there on the health or well-being. 18% people, which is a large population, and about 6% population are critical. So in a way, good news that is we don't have. I mean, though it is 186% people, but it's not as bad as we really thought out to be. 6% people who are in really low, who are in a really deep state of current well-being. Right? Very quickly, age-wise, just to give a very quick perspective, we had less than 30 years, we had about 1,200 people, 31 to 40 years, about, again, 1,200 people, 41 to 50 years, this is the age-wise demographics, about 500, and more than 50 years, about 230. So you can see the people who are above 50 are kind of taking care of themselves, 6%, 5%. I mean, the critical state is all right. The 31 to 40 has a typically, and also the less than 30. So this means the youngsters have a little higher rest than the others too. Just to give a very quick analysis. So we'll come back with analysis in about a week's time, but this is really a quick, deep dive, or not even a deep dive, actually just a quick view of the report. Moving forward, this is a gender-wise male. We had about 2,011 or 2,100 males and 930 women. And you can see the restless state and even the critical state in women being high, because as we saw that, because of the dual pressure of home and work, is just the Indian psyche or Indian male expectation that, you're at home and you'll work too. So that really crazy chauvinistic attitude, but that's how it is. 33% women are in the critical restless state. When we look at level-wise, this is just to give you perspective. In the survey, we had almost 126 entrepreneurs, whether small entrepreneurs or big entrepreneurs, 445 senior-level professionals, about 1,600 mid-level professionals, entry-level professionals, and about almost 737 workers. Right? So you see where the high rate of restlessness is entrepreneurs. 30% entrepreneurs are restless, and for reasons very valid. What will happen to my company? These are SMEs, MSMEs, mid-segment segment companies, right? Those entrepreneurs who are really restless as to what will happen to my organization. 3 months, no production, no factory, no workers, or the migrants have moved on. So there obviously is a high rate of restlessness in the entrepreneurs, very obviously. Very quickly, just to give 3-4 more perspectives on professional well-being. As I said, we will not get into much of analysis, but this is a question that we ask on clarity of communication. To me, this is a critical piece that despite working remotely, my team has been, this is a question that we asked, and there was a 5-point scale from a strongly disagree to a strongly agree. Right? So despite working remotely, my team has been communicating efficiently, smoothly with each other. So the communication really plays a role. And we saw a lot of companies, there are all those companies where the entrepreneurs, senior leaders, HR leaders, whatever the format was, wherever there were open communication, a lot of honesty, a lot of Zooms, a lot of meetings, a lot of engagements, and so on and so forth, those employees of the companies have been much better off than the others. Communication has played a key role and will play a key role in the professional well-being always. Right. We looked at comfort with the changes that work with the new normal. I would appreciate some more support and patience from my manager in order to keep me alive, really. Help everyone adjust to the new normal of working from home. Right. So again, a larger population is on the strongly agree that they need support. So it's important for us to realize that if we are asking people to work from home, they need support, whether it's tech support or even an emotional support. Right. Other questions we asked is, because of the lockdown, my company gives me flexible working hours. Most of the people agreed that, barring a close 22% people who did not agree with that. My colleagues have adopted well to the virtual working environment. There's a population, about one-fourth of the population, which believes that people have not really adapted. The rest of the people, 75% of people have adapted to the new working environment. Then we looked at job security. That concerns regarding the steadiness of job and income are always in my mind, because obviously there were a lot of talks about job losses and whatnot. Right, so about 13% people are disagree or strongly disagree. Right, the rest of the people are in the either mid-range or agree. The steadiness of the job and income are always in the mind. So this is a concern that will I lose my job? Will I have a pay cut and so on? So that has been. So the HRs or the companies which have gone to people and talked about that and had open communication and conversation with people, obviously those companies have been fairly successful. And if you've not done that, we know whether we have an issue. I'm worried that I might lose my job anytime soon. Look at that. There's a huge amount of population, right, which is disagree. I mean, not huge, sorry, just about 40%, 45% which disagree, but the rest of it is on the other side. All right, the nature of my work is making it difficult for me to work remotely. Very mixed bag of fruit, really, because obviously people, when the pandemic happened, the lockdown happened, a large part of the country or people were not really ready to work remotely because technology setups at home were not really ready. So those were the issue. So the reason we are talking about this is because this will give a perspective to the corporate India as to what is really going on. If you're looking at working remotely, work from home, the new normal and so on and so forth, what are the few things, and when we come out with the report, we talk about the action plan, what are the few things that we must take care of? All right. So moving on very quickly, in the interest of time, I will skip some of this because the panelists are waiting, but we also looked at the professional well-being, productivity, right? Where some people, if you see the last question, I've taken the challenge head on and I feel pumped up, which is very interesting. A large population people is talking about that they have taken the challenge head on, which is nice. So this means there is a large degree of optimism, but there's also, about 20-30% pessimism or negativity in people. So we need to, or the stress and anxiety, we need to really work on that 1/3 of the population. Okay, I'll skip this in the interest of time. I know the panelists is waiting and all of us are waiting for panelists to talk about that. I particularly like this. The third question is that my hobbies have come to my rescue and helped me de-stress. A lot of people took on to hobbies, whether it's yoga or cooking or whatever hobby they had, right? Whatever they could do at home, and they did. So there is almost a 70% people. Either there'll be a very interesting debate some separately sometime. Okay, I'm going to just skip this. But yeah, this is about overall optimism. I feel the economic crisis after the law. I fear the economic crisis. There is a large population which is fearing the economic crisis, very large population. So from HR perspective and organization perspective, I think it's important that we reach out to our people and at least, lay these fears in the minds of people. Otherwise, it will get only worse from a well-being and the health perspective. Okay, I'm going to skip this, and I think we're going to go panelists very quickly on what do they have to say. As we said, I'm sure Vicky will release this report in about a week's time, and then you can have more questions, and we'll set up some maybe a email or a phone line where you can ask questions about the research. But this was a free survey we did, and it's available. It will be available in about a week's time for anybody. And I'm sure there'll be on the basis of this research, a lot of companies can put their action plan. So, getting to panelists very quickly, let's see what do they have to say about well-being. I know that Vinti did do a small introduction, but just as a moderator, I think it's only my humble duty to introduce the absolute, a fantastic panel that we have today. So, though the world is equal today, but I'll still start with ladies first. Renu Bora, who's the CHRO of DB Shankar. She's got 25 years in HR with MNC, the private public sector. She's been 10 years with Shankar now, and Shankar is about a 4,000 people company, which is both direct and indirect. And they've been doing some really crazy work on wellness, and I'm sure we'll hear more from Renu, but things like e-yoga, chair yoga, health camps, preemptive medicals, which is very rare stuff in logistics industry, particularly those who understand logistics industry, warehousing, trucking, and freight forwarding, and so on and so forth. It's a very, very rare thing. Renu also have a very interesting career, right? Most of you will be quite surprised, pleasantly surprised, what kind of education background she has. She's did her MSc in mathematics, then MBA in HR. She also done her MPhil in computer application. So look at that. She got a very mixed balance of right brain and left brain, computer application, mathematics. And also she did her MS in physiotherapy or psychotherapy and counseling. So that's really a rare combination where somebody, a mathematician, a computer application, MPhil, and you do your MBA in HR and a psychotherapy and counseling. Absolutely fabulous. She, and of course, like such a senior professional, she has loads of certifications from ISAFs, from IF. She did a senior management program from IIM Calcutta, and done a lot of stuff from Hayes, job analysis from Hayes Group, and she's a certified assessor. And obviously she's because she's worked for companies like National, Nalco, Balco, Blue Star, and so on and so forth. She has a lot of interest in Gemba, Kaizen, and so on and so forth. A lot of those stuff. So that's Renu Bora for you, gents and ladies. Welcoming Renu on the panel. Then I'm going to introduce Dr. Chaturvedi. Actually, I can probably write a book on him, or anybody who knows him can actually write a book on the kind of stuff that Dr. Chaturvedi has done. He's one of those rare professionals who actually mixes psychiatry and medicine. We have heard of psychiatrists, we've heard of medicine, but he really mixes psychiatry and medicine. Right? He's currently professor in psychiatry in NIMHANS. Those who know NIMHANS is a National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences. It's under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. He also, prior to that, was the Dean of the Behavioral Sciences at NIMHANS. Right? As I said, he's a medical professional. So he's done his MBBS, then his master's, MD in psychiatry. And then some of the things that he has done, which I don't know the full form, but I will still say, which is FRCP psychology from UK. Doc, you are absolutely brilliant. He's got over 550 publications in national and international journals. He's got over 20 books of various kinds, including a book on chronic pain, book on communication skills. Now, this is a very different communication skills. It's about how do you communicate with ailing patients, more so patients of cancer and so on and so forth. He's done some very interesting work on psychiatry and cancer. He's traveled the world over, had different stints across the world, doing mental and physical well-being around the world. What I love about him, when I was talking to him, he's one statement, and you all will just be absolutely excited with that. He says, my biggest interest, apart professional interest, I'm sure it is not the personal interest, my biggest interest in life is pain. Pain, P-I and pain. He said, then he said, of course, not giving pain, but relieving people of pain. All right, so Doc, welcome to this panel, and I'm sure we're going to have some very interesting conversations. And lastly, I must say that one of the very interesting current portfolio he's handling. He's the chairman of the task force set up by Government of India of psychology on the psychological aspect of COVID, post-COVID, what's going on with all the stress, stigma, anxieties that people are going through. How do you deal with that? He's actually heading that entire that committee. Then let me introduce you to our third panelist, Venkat Raghavan. Very interesting, somebody who's been doing a lot of very, very exciting work, including using technology and whatnot in the wellness, well-being, or whatever you call it, well-being and wellness domain. Venkat, as he's generally called, he's the HR lead for operations in India and Sri Lanka for Accenture. And as most of you know, Accenture is 200,000 people organization, very large organization, and leading operations and leading wellness for that. He also leads the wellness for the entire organization. Leading wellness for that is absolutely crazy. Actually, Accenture started their wellness program about 2.5 years back, and Venkat is leading there. And I'm sure we'll hear some very, very exciting stuff that Venkat has been doing at Accenture. right? And the way they're using technology, not just just simple wellness. Actually, very interestingly, and I'm sure Venkat will talk about that. The entire thing started with like a suicide prevention program, not just for Accenture, but the entire ecosystem a couple of years back. And then, of course, that has catapulted now into much larger wellness programs. They use a lot of analytics, business analytics, which has been built into the entire wellness program, whether it's demographics, family background, city people come from, or they live in, and so on and so forth. He's also very interestingly also leading the NASCOM committee, which is essentially talking about the impact of COVID and why do we fear COVID and so on and so forth, and much larger impact on the well-being. That's the committee he's part of. So with that being the panelists, gentlemen and ladies, I'm going to put the first question, and I'm going to request each panelist to put their perspective on this question. What, according to your experience, and maybe we can start with Renu first, and then Doctor, and then Venkat. According to your experience, are the possible implications of employees' well-being status on the organizations because of this ongoing crisis? I mean, what's really going on? What are the possible implications on employee well-being? So your take, Renu?
Yeah, thank you, Ashish. And I really envy your energy. Thank you, Vicky, for inviting us. And I think we have a very good panel and experts in the panel who I look forward to hear from them. The way you gave my introduction, Ashish, I was just thinking that, you can sell anyone. Yeah, so then you feel a sense of pride for yourself. Okay, so it's an interesting question that, what are the implications of current crisis? And yeah, so it's not only COVID, it's not only a disease, we know about it. It is not only a physical health related ailment. The way it is, and it's a pandemic, the way it has taken huge space in the entire globe because of the kind of globalization that we have in the 21st century. It has huge repercussions. So very specific topics, say for corporates, what has its impact on well-being? The social media that we have, every day when you log in and first thing that you see on the sidebar is the number of cases that are coming up, and they are in millions and crores. So it has an adverse impact on you. You feel that the disease is just knocking your door. And then you see everybody wearing masks around you. Even if it's a normal scenario, it is, or it's a new normal, it is still will take some time to, accept that we are in a very different kind of situation. We are working in a very new way. We are all sitting cocooned in our homes and working in a setup which is not ergonomically suitable. Though we may say that, we are working from the comfort of our homes, but this is a very different kind of working scenario where you don't even... I have a colleague who stays maybe a few blocks away in Basant Kunj in Delhi, but I have not met her since March, and she is my direct report. So, and when we talk about team bonding, and here we are not even seeing each other. And there is a fear of financial crisis going to happen. It can loom large. It can also happen to you because you are working in a private organization. And what will happen to tomorrow? Social media you can avoid, okay. And we have been advising people to avoid going for social media and just getting bombarded with various kind of information. But this work pressure, because the way we are working is, even if we have a very good technology forum, we are organizing Teams call at the snap of a button and snap of a finger, and we are all day long in calls. And then late evening we have got webinars, and this has impacted people in a very big way because every time they are mentally engaged. I have got people who are saying that on Sundays only they are working on the project that they have been given to, because, or they are responding on emails on Sundays because Monday to Saturday they are all on calls. And then you talk about, then we also had 2 surveys done in our organization. People are asking for mandatory leave. People are asking for, can we have a day in the week which is allotted for no calls so that we can do work, office work. So there is a lot of impact on wellness because the financial burden is there in your head. The fact that tomorrow, even if the other day when I was sleeping and I got up at 12 o'clock with a strange cough, for half an hour I was thinking, I went for a walk, though I was wearing a mask, maybe I have got corona. So I'm to say, and then it is not normal, and it has a huge impact. While the organization is working from, has got work from home scenario, we are giving a lot of technology support. We are organizing a lot of webinars. We are organizing Zumba classes. We are organizing various e-yoga sessions. But the fact is that it is quite humongous, and there is no easy answer. We are still discovering new things. This is my take on this.
Thank you, Renu. Brilliant. Absolutely. I can certainly empathize with you, the social media impact on us. And I really love this thought of yours. Then can we have a day in the week, no call day? I've just taken that and I'm going to propagate that. Let's do a week, no call day. Absolutely. No call, no Zoom call, no meetings. Just do the work. And look at that. We are saying, just let me do my work. Forget the calls. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Renu. Brilliant thoughts. Absolutely. So earthly and brilliant. Doctor, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, Ashish. And thanks to Fiki for organizing this program. And I've been listening to the previous panel also. It's very, very educative. There are a couple of things I would like to say, Ashish. First of all, when we look at from the mental health point of view, it is not the typical psychiatric disorders that we are seeing. There are newer disorders which have come up, which are related to loneliness, exhaustion, fatigue. Whether fatigue is because of working from home, or the fatigue is because of Zoom or with the webinars, boredom, demotivation. Most important thing is, the lack of human touch. I mean, we are seeing many more people, but we are seeing many more people virtually. But when is the last time did I shake somebody's hand? Did I pat somebody or did I hug someone? So it's just, it's like a withdrawal from reality. And then what Renu said just now, we are seeing quite a lot of health anxiety. Yes. People are worried that whether they have got corona. It's not only so little is known about COVID-19 that you can blame everything to COVID. So it's not only cough. Now we find that anybody who has gastric symptom, chest symptom, fatigue, muscle symptom, visual symptom, every symptom is now being linked to COVID. So we are seeing a lot of these issues and problems which are coming up. And we had shut down our outpatients for the first 2 months. And then from 1st of June, we started, seeing our hospital. We started seeing patients because ours is not a COVID hospital. It's mental health and neuroscience hospital. And I can say that most of the patients who came had problems related to the impact of COVID. And most of it was about work related and business related. And, financial stress, occupational stress. And not only that, people are having sleep disturbances. That's the most important thing. They are stuck inside the home, and there is no money, and a lot of industry has got affected, but they're not able to sleep. So the newer types of issues and problems which are coming up, and unfortunately, there are no easy answers to most of these. But I want to make a comment about your survey findings. And we did a survey, obviously in the pre-COVID times, almost 10, 15 years back. And we had done it in Bangalore and about some of the industries, I can't name them. And I'm quite surprised because in your findings, you find 18% were the moderate, restless, and 6% critical, which is like about 24% of people were stressed out.
Yes.
Now I should tell you how many people had stress and anxiety in the software ITES companies before COVID. 36%.
Wow.
Okay, so that's very surprising, and we did a similar survey in our institute among doctors and psychiatrists. And we were quite surprised to find that at least 20% of them felt less stressed out than at normal times. So I think what's happening is the stress has changed. Yeah. Whereas people had stress earlier about getting stuck in traffic or reaching on time, facing the boss, facing colleagues, and deadlines. So a lot of organizing for food or organizing for children and other things. So those stresses have become less. But obviously, there's some new stresses have come up.
Correct.
But this is a very surprising finding that actually people, in fact, are less stressed than before. It's actually the stress which is there is more annoying stress now, and since it is very new. And there is something else. I'll just take a minute. Is that when the whole COVID thing came, the whole country went through different stages of what we call coping with serious stress. That is called as DABDA, the denial, anger, bargaining, depression. So first we were in the stage of denial. It can't happen to us. It cannot happen in our country. It can happen only in China or Italy or Spain. Then we got angry that it has happened to us. And then we were angry at not only ourselves, we become angry at God. That why did God give? And then easiest thing is to get angry at the government. Why did the government didn't protect us? And in industry, people get angry at their bosses. They want everything to be done by their bosses. So anger was there, and now we have come to the stage of bargaining and depression. Now we are thinking that let us use the safety measures, let us use masks, let us wash hands. But the acceptance is coming in. And people are now getting used to lockdowns. Yes. Lockdowns are not going anywhere. Right. The WHO has said pandemic is going to stay. We are looking at the next many, many years, and I think people will get used to it.
Yeah. So true, Doctor. Absolutely. I love this word, dabda. Well, I'm so glad, Doctor. I think the two, of course, everything that you said is a gem. But the two things that you talked about, that people are stuck inside home. There was earlier you would be stuck somewhere else, but you're stuck. I mean, people would want to be at home, and now you're saying stuck inside home, right? That's the world is changing really. And then, of course, I so completely agree that we being so social animal, you can't do social distance or physical distance at all. Therefore, the loneliness, fatigue, shaking of hand, patting of back, that the hugs and all that, that is so critical. Because you're missing that, and therefore the stress and the mental wellness is more critical. Thank you so much, Doc. Yeah. Moving on to Venkat.
Hi, Ashish. Thank you. I think great question, and I'll go at it two ways. I think the impact on an organization really depends on, in my view, who you are dealing with, and it could be who you are dealing with based on in this current pandemic, where you're from, what's your gender, what's your marital status, what's your living arrangement, and perhaps even what's your life stage. And these are just to name a few.
Yes.
And, what are I think, once that becomes a little clearer, the implications for our employees, for any organization's employees are various. And, as everybody was talking, I was making a list. And I'm going to go at it in no specific order. One of the things that crosses my mind ever so often is, people who are subjected to domestic violence and or, abuse in any form. In a lockdown situation like this, they're actually stuck at home with the perpetrator of the crime. You could look at impacts of isolation when you're being treated for the disease and its after impacts. The media news bombardment and what's your exposure to it on a daily basis. And a lot of elderly who are retired are watching only that day in and day out. And, our employees could be living with senior citizens. You are talking about, incidences of self-harm, depending on the state of one's health. And I think stigma coupled with stigma, and I'm just calling the stigma layered over stigma. There's a stigma on mental health, and then there is a stigma on now COVID. And, so what is the effects of, on any human being on, stigma layered over stigma, and the power of how it can weigh a person down. It's also, I think, truly testing people's resilience. What is your stretchability? And to name just a few others, professional insecurity. One person actually, one employee came to me and said, I haven't touched another human being, leave alone being intimate. And it is really hard, and it's playing on me, and it's been 3 months, and I haven't seen another person.
Wow.
Kids at home, worrying about not just, I think the early worries were there are 2 people working in the house, there are kids running around. Now the worry is what's the impact it is having on the known normalcy of my child's upbringing.
Right.
And I think, some very obvious ones are the sheer paranoia. If somebody coughs as I'm going for a run, even I see myself twitch a little bit and swerve a little bit. I don't know what I'm swerving from. And of course, there are absolutely, people are dealing with the so-called lack of boundaries. There is no boundary to anything. Is it family time? Is it social time? Is it TV time? Is it dinner time? Is it work time? It's just one long continuum. And I think, the response to your question is it will have to, one can possibly assess the implication of an employee well-being, knowing who you are dealing with, and truly seeking to understand what is it that they are going through.
I think so true, absolutely, Venkat, in just the right spirit, that we need to know who we're dealing with, absolutely. We don't know, because you can't have one size fit all. No way, right? So we'll have to figure out as to who we're dealing with, your background, where you come from, what kind of family environment you have, and so on and so forth. And I think that we're all talking about the same thing, that, it is becoming, the boundaries are really getting diminished because it is work from home. So there is, whether it's personal life, professional life, your personal time, your hobby time, there is nothing. It's just one long 18, 20 hours a day. Well, thank you very much. Let me move on to the second question, which is very, very intriguing, which is about the possible risk, as per you, with that possibly organizations could be facing, the mental or emotional, because of the current. I know some of it you've already talked about, but I'd like to hear a little more about if from more from your organization perspective, and from doctor, because you're dealing with the world at large. What are the possible risks you think that the organizations could be facing because of the current mental emotional state of people? So we're essentially talking about what are the possible risks. If maybe we'll go reverse this time, start with Venkat, then Doctor, and then Renu. That what kind of risk are you? Venkat, you got 200,000 people, and of course, since you're also on the NASCOM committee and do a lot of other things. So, if you can talk about what's really going on in the corporate India and what possible risk might be there.
So I think we've come from. Now I'll play this very differently, right? When we started when the entire pandemic started, we were in a state of shock. So was I, and it took some getting used to. Mm-hmm. But the paradox is there was also a great state of euphoria for many people, and for a lot of working people who were suddenly plunged into working from home. There was euphoria possibly on account of gratitude that they could still continue to work. There was euphoria that their companies had stepped up and taken care of everything. And there was just euphoria of more family time. People who are on the road suddenly said, I have family time. So, there is also the paradox of euphoria of suddenly being plunged into being at home.
Right.
And, one of the interesting conversations is I've heard many organizations talk about our productivity has gone up. And, there are various ways of looking at it. People have spoken about it publicly. And, in many such conversations that I've personally engaged, within and outside, I've always asked, saying, how sustainable are the results? Because it's 3 months, everything comes down. It's like a euphoria of a new joiner in an organization.
Right.
It's extremely high, and then it settles to a stable state. And we are far from knowing the stable state yet. So, people's mental and emotional state is evolving depending on, it was one lockdown. It's lockdown 4.0. Okay, lockdown is here to stay. Okay, now COVID's extended. So we are still resetting our expectations. And one of the immediate tests to that was, as soon as the first lockdown opened, people started getting out. those productivity numbers almost always came into question, because now people had other engagements outside of their homes also, right? And you start dealing with the outside world. So it's one thing to measure productivity in an organization. So I think the biggest possible risk is, to achieving, I will just leave it at 2. I think there is no current state. Our current state is literally still changing every day. And it is defining some new normal which we possibly don't know. And I think there will be no stability. One is, I think there will be no stability to predicting organizational results until there is some level of stability on the mental and emotional state. That's really one way I look at it. I think the second is I think the real sheer logistics of what is it doing to various industries, the associated industries, all of that will play out. We're resulting in those. I think those are the 2 big risks of achieving organizational objectives.
Sure. I guess in your case, in Accenture or a lot of other IT companies, I think people are still habituated to work from home. I would certainly like to hear from Dr. and Renu, because Renu, from the logistics industry, people got to be there. You got to be there at the warehouse. You got to be there driving the truck, and you got to be there at the custom clearing the stuff and so on and so forth. And also from Dr. What do you see? When from an organization perspective, I know that you work more with individuals and patients, but what do you see the risk of this mental and emotional? Would that impact organizations? More so things like, there could be high rate of staff sickness, or people will lose jobs, or they'll have to retrain themselves and so on and so forth, do something different completely because, the work order is changing. So Doctor, your take on this, what could be possible risk to organizations?
Ashish, before I come to that, I just want to make 2 statements. Yes. One is when Venkat said about, stigma layered over stigma, and we all know about the stigma, but there has been a good part of the stigma. Because of the stigma of COVID-19, the stigma towards mental health has become less. All organizations are now having psychological counselors. Headlines which you showed were on mental health. Yes. The government has got educated about health and mental health. And, public has got, now they are worrying less about COVID-19, worrying more about mental health. So in some way, this has been a blessing of disguise for mental health.
I couldn't agree more, absolutely. Yes.
And the second is, which I think Renu mentioned about social media. And I can understand, even we are very concerned about social media. But in these times, social media has come out to be the social support. Imagine if this was happening 20 years back without WhatsApp and Facebook, what would happen to us? I'm quite sure something else would happen. But, social media is a new social support. Okay. Coming to your issues, what will happen to organizations? I think people are getting used to, like in hospitals, anytime we find one doctor or one nurse or one attender becomes positive, all the people with whom they have come to contact with, they go away for 2 weeks on quarantine, and then we have started working in different ways. So same thing will happen in industry. So I think suppose when they are going to office, when they go to the location, and if in one section, so industry has to make sure that it is in sections. So
I think we lost Doc.
They would all go off for 10 days or 15 days. About the overall structure of organizations, what will happen is, again coming back to what Venkat said and Renu said earlier, when this thing whole started, people started feeling that it's a good, we can have family time, we are getting an opportunity for quality time and things like those. But see, the good thing about quality time is that it is always very short. Now is the problem is quantity time, what to do with the time. Being in the same home, looking at same people, we have got fed up. All the topics we have talked about, all the old photographs have been seen, all the old music has been heard. What else to do? We are finished with Ludo and snake ladders and all that. So the honeymoon phase is over. After that, it's the phase which has come is, there has been a status quo and people are looking at newer ways. And what happens in such situations?
Yeah, he's.
In all these situations, we have lost home. Where is the home? There is no home any longer. Okay, but what happens in natural courses, the industry will rise as the phoenix. And like the phoenix rises, they will come up with newer ways, newer situations, newer things, and be able to, work.
Perfect. Why are we still here, doctor? But this is absolutely brilliant. I think the way he said the industry will rise as phoenix, this is a prediction for all those industry people who are hearing. And while you're listening, you can take your notes and please put your questions on the chat. We will answer. We'll take your questions separately in a while. All right, but I really like the way he said that industry has to make sure that we de-risk ourselves, work in session or de-risk. Absolutely fantastic. Moving on, Renu, what is your take? How do we organize? How is there a possible impact on organizational objective, overall vision with this mental emotional state of people?
My take is that let's revisit the purpose of organization. When we say, what are the possible risks to organization's objective? Why do the organization exist for? So, if we are talking about professional organizations, business organizations, they obviously exist for financial gain, profit, we say, or growth. So, in terms of volume, in terms of revenue. That is one big objective, or you can say financial objective. And the second objective every organization says that they would like to be employer of choice, or they would like to have a employer brand, the best employer, or great place to work kind of thing. And third objective, organizations do say that they have a bigger community objective, because we are not in isolated space. Our stakeholders are not only our shareholders, but the entire community is our stakeholder. The third objective also is about the community or the environment, ecology,
right?
So carbon footprint or Shankar. These are the objectives. So obviously the first will have a setback, which means the financial objective will have a setback. And we have heard from various people like Jack Ma or Tata, whoever, that for this year, let the goal be survival. Let's just come out of it. That should be the goal. Or a parent like me whose son has just passed his class 12 and has to go to the university and is in a limbo, this fear that how long he will be in like this, also some kind of anxiety, gives you anxiety. And there are lakhs and millions of such children in India. So coming back again to organization, yes, the organization objective have to be revisited. Why we were existing, and the way doctor said that it will rise like phoenix. I also, it may not happen for everyone, but I think the time has come to reassess why we are existing. Are we only existing for pure exploitation of natural resources to earn profit? Coming to very micro level of working. So when we were suddenly locked down and obviously some of us played Ludo and watched all the movies on YouTube, and somebody like me mourned on the death of Irfan Khan in the lockdown period and watched almost all of his movies. But on the work front, it was for 2 months, it was only maintenance work. You were just thinking, whatever is a maintenance job, something has to be done. Okay, goal setting has to be done on appraisal. Okay, increments have to be given. Okay, salary has to be processed. So let's do the maintenance work. But now we have a hang of it. And we know, while people in our industry were saying we can never work from home, but we have made it successful to a large extent. Right. We have found out ways on how to make it successful. We were so much bogged down that we need to have a physical papers in front of us, a physical signature, and we have found 100 ways to work without a physical signature, without physically you going through the document. Absolutely. And binding those documents. So that phase has, and you have used technology for so many things for going paperless, which could have come to IT companies before, but for companies like us now we are forced to do that. Now I think we are going for value add phase, where we are thinking, in HR, what do we value add in a new way? So we are now looking for new ways, and social media definitely has helped a lot in bringing us closure. Who had thought that we will use our 4 p.m. webinars for cooking classes, for Zumba? I'm just saying, not everybody will go for Zumba, not everybody will go for cooking, not everybody will go for gardening, but those who have that interest, they will go for it. We are having one noon quizzes on Friday. We have yoga. We have got artwork series in which we involve children of the employees. And now we are looking for new ways to add value employees' purpose by, the entire talent review process now is being done online, which was done very much physically. The coaching now is being done through MS Team or through Zoom. So yes, I think it is a matter of also revisiting your organization goals.
I think that's the best thing you said. We need to revisit the purpose of organization. The three purposes: financial, employer of choice, or a bigger community. Right? Financially, if you can sustain and even survive, great, good enough. But the two objectives we talk about, being an employer of choice and doing something for the employees, and doing community, right? Can we really focus on that this year? Very, very well said, Renu.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move now to something very interesting. I'm sure a lot of audience will be very excited about this. It's about to hear, and I'm going to turn it to Venkat again. Renu has already shared a few things that she is doing. Venkat, I'd like to hear what is Accenture doing to really increase employee well-being in the organization. Some of your experiments and stories. Hello? Venkat?
Hey, I'm right here. Sorry, Ashish. Apologies.
No.
I started talking without releasing the mute button.
We'll
quickly cover a couple of things. One, one is I think on the space of awareness. So I'll actually weave this in the form of a very quick story, right? Something that started, we're a large organization and we are a significant portion of our communities that we work and live in. And whatever happens outside happens inside, right? And so does, on a odd day, self-harm. And we said, how can we help people how do we know who needs help? And that's really was our humble beginnings 2.5 years ago. And when we got an industry body together, we talked with other people in the industry, and we really, our first workshop was really around understanding self-harm. And I think from there we've come a long way. We today run workshops. We run 9 types of workshops, curated workshops. We've spoken to over 40,000 of our people in the last year in person for over 90 minutes on mental wellness. And we actually differentiate between awareness and education. Awareness is knowing that mental wellness is a thing. Education is knowing that if you're sad for 14 days, or beyond, is a self-check for yourself to know that you need to go see a professional to get yourself some help. We've also built, I think from there our journey went on to advocacy, which is like you have a fire warden everywhere. How do we reach people across our 39 facilities in that last corner of the topmost floor? And we really said we have to have our spokespeople. So we have over 500 advocates across the country who are actually trained to be, first responders in a manner of speaking. I think the third thing is we've very extensively focused on resilience. And resilience is, both as a concept and how does one build it. And there are both local and global workshops. And Ashish, I was sharing with you, in a time like this, we almost have an open house with a professional counselor, a psychologist or a psychiatrist once a week. It's an open house. People can come, people can talk about it, talk about what's on their mind, or gain some tips and go away. And there is a lot of care and crisis and community work that we do, which is really extending our, counseling support to families of our employees, up to, and even contractors, and up to 6 months after they, leave us. I'll leave with the final thing. I think we did adopt artificial intelligence, for sheer scalability, easy access, and enhanced experience for our people. Not everybody wants to pick up a phone. And so we said we introduced Visa, which is WYSA for anyone who's listening. It's a free version available to all of you. We've made the premium version available to all of our employees. So pretty much everybody has WISA available on their phone for them to use. And finally, I think we've come a long way in understanding. We've come a long way in understanding, and we know we have a much longer way. But I think we also understand that mental health is a function of truly, who you are. And one, more than anything else, one size doesn't fit all. So today we are really looking at how do we talk to a single person? How do we talk to a person in their 20s? How do we talk to a person who's a single parent? How do we talk to a person who may be dealing with an empty nest syndrome? How do we, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to segment people to know if you are so and so, what's appropriate for you in terms of communication. And finally, we also have several pilots running to use technology to ensure that content that our people may be exposed to are moderated, and we're actually now introducing that work in pilot phases to our clients. So that's really the length and breadth of where we've come in the last 2.5 years. Thanks Ashish for asking.
Fabulous. That's fantastic story. I mean, I was just thinking they're whooping. 40,000 people have gone through 90 minutes of counseling. I was just doing a quick mental math. There's almost 3,000 days of counseling with people. Boy, that's just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Doc, any story you would like to share that you've heard of you doing, not only NIMANS, but I'm sure you've seen the world in your last 40 years. Anything you like to talk more particularly?
Well, Ashish, you caught me on the wrong foot, and as an organization, because it is like diya tale andhera, So we are not doing anything for ourselves. We are all the time doing for others, as Venkat said, and Renu was saying. She also does a lot of counseling. People ask us for advice, but nobody asks us. How are we surviving? So we miss out on that.
वो हलवाई अपनी दुकान की मिठाई नहीं खाता.
Okay, but I think what I have gathered, this has been a very short experience about dealing with COVID and COVID-like situations, is that we have to look at variety. And something which Venkat said, whether you call it town hall or whatever, self-help is the best help. And you talk to people, you share with each other. It's not only about talking. You find people who are listening. And I think the virtual platform is very good because it shows you numbers of people who are listening. And they might not be listening. They have put their video off and they have gone away somewhere. But that is very, it is very enthusing that so many people are listening to you. But it's also to get ideas from people, how they are surviving, the type of thing which you are asking now, so that people can give more ideas to other people of how to survive. But in the end, I think it is looking at variety. So, variety can be simple things. Some days you work from your, office in your home. One day you work from the dining table. One day you work, in your bedroom. That a little change is something which the body can, accept that. So, but it is something. And also, the volunteering, doing good for others is something which is very, very good. Organizations, what they can do is, I saw in this previous panel, and some of you have also said, awarding them, giving them, good gestures, even saying thank you, and having small games and tips. I mean, these are things which we have to think now out of the box and get more ideas of how to survive with this, because this is going to be the new normal for the next many, many months and years.
Oh boy. I'm actually a little scared when you say many years. I'm okay with many months, but many years, oh boy. Renu, any quick, I know you already talked about a few things, but any quick one or two other things? I know you're doing
so I will not narrate what all we have done because they're not very different. I think we are all doing, but great inputs from both of you, the panel. I just say that what we have done is that when we organize various HR for you, HR Connect sessions. These are like not many sessions under different brand names, reach out to people in small groups. And as and when we hear something of concern as HR, we immediately act on it. So, for example, we heard a concern from some lady who said that, at one noon, I have to go and eat food for my children. I have to heat food warm the food for my children. And this manager is saying, come on the video. Why? Why is he insisting me to come on the video? So we say to managers that you can't insist on people come on video. You can do the walk the talk. You wear your t-shirt and proper collared t-shirt. You come on the video, but you can't insist people to come on the video. This is like a kind of harassment. Similarly, we heard from people that they have a lot of issue on data connectivity. The vendor, the service provider of Airtel is not connecting in some zones. Our managers said, no, this is their work. They are saving on their fuel. Now they should invest on a broadband. Why should we invest? These kind of things happen in organization. No, but वो खुद क्यों नहीं खर्च करेंगे अपना? But then we said, no, we are here to support such people. And then it was a 6-week tussle between HR and others. And we said, no, they want it. Let's give it to them. So we enhanced the data card. We brought a new vendor in place in addition to Airtel, and all those things happened. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I some of the things that you're saying, it resonated. I'm thinking I also did the same. I told my people, well, when we're having a video call, everybody must switch on their video. I mean, we like me in an office, but I'm really taking a cue from what you're saying and maybe implement a few things in my company. Okay, moving on. I mean, you already answered this question about technology, so I'm not taking this. I'm going to move on to the last question that I have for the panel, and then we'll take very quickly some questions from the audience. All right. So here is my last question, which essentially, and I'll leave it to whoever wants to take this question. It doesn't have to be addressed to any one person. Which essentially is, how do you see the way forward for the companies post-pandemic, right? I'd like to hear that. I mean, there's some quick thoughts on way forward post the pandemic, where when it comes to work culture, expectation from employees or demand vis-a-vis their emotional and physical well-being. So, because we are all talking about new normal for a few months, and Doc is saying few years, it could be like this, right? So there is a bit of, there's all kind of mistrust, confusion, what kind of productivity we'll want from people when working from home, but the homes are not set out in the way that people can work. All kind of issues are there, right? But we know that we want to, this is the new normal, we've got to work, and as HR leaders and as doctor, what are the few things that you think that you will suggest as a way forward? There are a lot of
if I can start, Ashish. See, when this COVID came, it came as everybody says unprecedented, and we were unprepared. But now we know, from whatever little we know, that there are going to be a second wave and a third wave. We come to know that people who even get an infection, they are not immune forever. They might be immune for 1 year or 2 years, but there might be another strain. So now in future, government has got this thing. Whenever their number increases too much, then they say there should be a lockdown. So now we have got used to these uncertainties, and I think organizations should be prepared for it in future. That if lockdowns happen, what do we do? If a similar situation happens, what do we do? If there is a second wave, third wave, if there is another virus, what do we do? So I think this should prepare us. This is like it's like an inoculation to the society and organizations to be prepared for such things in future, so that we are much better prepared of how to deal with it without having the amount of impact that we have faced and suffered during this current pandemic.
Absolutely, I think that's a great message, that be prepared, guys, because there will be a repetition of this. Right, so don't think this is over. There will be repetition to now be. But we were not prepared on the 18th, 19th of March, but now be prepared. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah.
Renu, Venkat, any of you would like to very quickly send a final message as to what we must do?
I just say two things. That even the pandemic or no pandemic, organizational culture, the philosophy has not changed. So and should not change. Which means we should keep on working on making the organization more open, more authentic, because we can't wear the facade every time. And we should set the right expectations. So if your manager is giving a call to it and setting those 8 a.m. Zoom calls with you, 9 p.m. calls with you for closing the day,
right.
and he is showing that he's so committed because the times are very tough, they have to bring new business. Are you setting the right expectation? I think that is very important.
So
this pandemic or no pandemic, I think setting expectation is very important, and having the right culture of mutual respect. So before pandemic also we had issues where we used to hear the managers have been quite disrespectful at times, and now also we hear this, and now it is more pronounced because you can take the voice. So there a manager who would say, इतना भी brain नहीं है क्या? अपना brain लगाओ ना. Yeah. So these are not simple statements. I think these are very loaded statements.
Very loaded, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you can't.
This is from my side. Yeah.
I know. I think you're very right. Be more authentic, and I think that there has to be mutual respect. Not only respect of professionals, but also respect of time of each other. Right, and therefore the 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. is absolutely no. Venkat, your closing comments, the way forward.
Yeah, I think structure, power of preparation and structure. And I'll quickly qualify. Power of preparation is, we prepared for many, most organizations have a good business continuity plan. If this happens, I will do this, right? Yes. And eventually all of that came to test. And that's why we all prepare. Right? All preparation can ascertain is that when something goes wrong, varied ways of responding. Correct. So continue to prepare.
Absolutely.
Number one.
Yes.
Number two is structure, right? In a very structured manner, prepare to work in the new, right? Address everything that this has cropped up. So I would say structure, systems, and policies to address the new normal, whatever that is right now, and continue to prepare for an uncertain future would be the two things.
Fabulous. Absolutely. I think that the message is very clear, loud and clear to all the audience who are watching this. That is this is going to be new normal. We will have more of lockdowns and situations like this. So preparation is the key. Be more authentic, set the right expectation, and have the right structures to make sure that that whatever whenever we have a new and uncertain environment like this, we are much more prepared than what we were prior. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to just move to the other quickly. Vinti, are you around? I'm going to move quickly to the other panel, to that where we have the questions from audience. Where is? Let me just check. Where are those questions? Anybody from FICCI, if you're watching, if there are some questions that have come from audience, I'd be happy to pass it on to.
Yeah, let me just check this.
Yes. I know we're already behind time. Doctor, I know that you said that we must keep time for the questions. But I think I think the panel has been so brilliant, and the kind of thing that you said is absolutely so bang on. Sometimes you wonder, when you're sitting in a class and the teacher is so good, you don't want to ask any questions. And the three teachers over here, Venkat, Renu, and Doctor, have been so good that you may not even have any questions. So
but I should add that, Ashish, your questions were very interesting. And since they were visible to us, I think it was quite a good session. I found it very insightful. I found the input of Doctor and Venkat quite
absolutely brilliant.
Ashish, we have a question here.
Yeah.
So they say mental health concerns are considered personal issues which employees need to figure out by themselves. This is what the psychology of organizations are. So how do you see organizations rising up to this now with that mindset?
Venkat, would you like to take that?
I would love to take that. I think, and I'd love to take that because I agree. I think firstly, it's a fabulous question. Self-help is the best way to help yourself. But I will say two other things. We actually very quickly realized we had to do three things. One, make it okay to talk about it. The second and the third thing are very interesting. The second thing, we realized we had to teach people signs and symptoms of we are not professionals. So we had to learn in simple layman language, mental health means what and mental health manifests how. I'm tired repeatedly. And what is the difference between normal and abnormal and how it changes from person to person and how that's not a right word. And then the third was to help people understand what are the resources available at hand. Now, the way this works is you talk about mental health, you learn about signs and symptoms, and then you know which resources to use. Now, while we do that, that's why we also have advocates and we also talk to many people. And one thing we tell everybody, at least we tell everybody at the firm, we say, these signs and symptoms, watch it for yourself. But when something goes wrong with you, the likelihood is your ability to observe and act on it may be impeded. So always contract with another person who can check in on you when you are not being your regular self. Which means if you are suddenly withdrawn and you are usually gregarious, you tell someone, hey, if I contract with you to tell me that something, to check in on me that something may not be right. So it's a combination. It's predominantly, in our view, one to really help themselves. But I think we are trying to create an ecosystem where you start observing that somebody is not being their regular self. We are making it okay for people to reach out and say, you're not looking your regular self. Do you need help?
Okay, that's very absolutely self-help is the way to go. Thank you very much, Venkat. Absolutely brilliant. Anybody, Binti, any more questions?
Yeah, there's another one, and they say that, do you see COVID-19 pandemic exposing flaws which existed pre-COVID too, especially towards mental health and employee assistance programs?
Renu, would you like to take that? Because I know you are doing a lot of EAPs. Or maybe you want to read
hear that. I'm sorry, I could not hear that question.
Yeah, so Renu would say that, do you see COVID-19 pandemic exposing flaws which existed pre-COVID too, especially towards mental health and employee assistance programs? I think it's echoing with what you said earlier that,
Right.
before the pre-COVID also there used to be a lot of
Used to be EAPs, yeah, that's right. Yeah, there used to be EAPs. Are these, because of COVID, are they exposing flaws which were existing in pre-COVID too, in the EAPs? That's what it is saying, really. Somebody's asking that.
Venkat can give a reply. I have some network issue. I can't.
Sure. I think. Sorry, go ahead, doctor.
No, if I can add it, it's not only showed flaws in industry, but it has showed flaws in the government, in the system, in the whole country towards mental health. And I would just like to repeat that it has brought mental health so much into focus, and I hope it continues, and so that it's actually good for everyone's well-being. Yeah, sorry,
I think it's so true, Doctor. It is not just the company, actually, it's absolutely across. And I mean, not that we want to talk politics here, but it has exposed everyone, absolutely. But we were not prepared, really. This kind of, you're prepared for, as Venkat was saying, you're prepared for all kind of risk, business risk, earthquake, this and that. You're never prepared for, that we will not be able to get to work for 3 months, 4 months. We never prepared for this. Yeah, but I think in the interest of time, Vinti, I think Venkat, Doc, and Renu have been absolutely brilliant in their answers. The kind of examples that we've got, the story that we heard, and what Accenture is doing and Renu is doing under EAP. And of course, Doctor talked about Diya Tale Andhera, but I know Doctor is lightening the entire world with what he is doing. Well, I can only thank them for being here, for sharing their views, sharing your being, and of course, spending time with our audience. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Ashish. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for superbly moderating the session as always. Thank you, Renu. Thank you, Venkat. And thank you, Dr. S.K. Chaturvedi for joining in. I would also like to make a mention here that this panel on mental health and well-being was supported by HRNXC, which we collaborated with HRNXC for this particular panel. So thank you, Ashish, for supporting us. So here is a wrap, and I think we are just on time. We just finished on time. We had some brilliant insights coming in. We will be tagging you on the social media handles. Do have a look at our FICCI and FICCI Quality Forum Twitter and LinkedIn to find out your tweets and promote them in your networks. Thank you so much. Signing off from here. Thank you all for joining in.
Thank you very much. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.